What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today I'm absolutely delighted to say that I come to you with the 7th episode in the Do It for Dan saga. That's right, after over a year we are back with some more updates in this unbelievable series of events. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, first of all, where have you been? Secondly, let me briefly explain what has gone on so far. So as I said, this is the 7th episode in this series. The first one I made back in February 2023. So this has been going for now over 2 years. Actually, it's been over a year since the last episode, since episode 6 as well. So let me attempt to refresh your memory and also mine as to what's happened in this story so far. It's worth saying though, if you haven't seen any of the other 6 episodes, I would implore you to go and watch them and listen to them first, because that will make this whole thing make more sense, even though I'm about to give a brief summary as to what's happened so far. Links to those are down below in the description. It's one of the best Reddit stories that we've ever seen. It's definitely worth your time. Okay, so let's talk about what has happened so far. Well, this story all started when this guy's parents told his brother, famously called Dan, that he could take OP's house and the OP could just live in the camper in the backyard instead, because he's single and Dan has a wife and kids. And that, for some reason, is fair. It's worth mentioning as well that that was OP's house. Dan and his parents have nothing to do with it. OP owns it. They just thought, oh, you're single, you can live in the backyard and Dan can move in with his family. Now, to reason with OP and attempt to get him to concede his own house, OP's parents kept saying, just do it for Dan. And that is obviously where we get this now infamous title of the series. From there on, the story just gets crazier and crazier. In episode 2, OP's parents broke the locks on his house to try and move in while he wasn't at home. In episode 3, they and Dan showed up at his house for Christmas, full well knowing that they weren't invited and were not welcome at all. In episode 4, they were back once again. This time demanding money, simple as that. They'd stopped trying to be nice, and this time were just like, no, you know what, I want your cash. And that was sort of the end of it for a while, until episode 5, which took place about 6 months after those first 4 episodes, with a whole host of new updates. Then episode 6, the most recent, ended with OP's truck being egged on Halloween by his ex-sister-in-law, Dan's ex. Now, she is a pivotal character throughout this entire thing. So if you don't know who she is, I can't even begin to explain who she is. You just have to go and listen and watch the other episodes. But there's obviously a lot more detail than that. But that is, as far as I can tell, to the best of my ability, a brief summary of what's happened so far. Once again, I would encourage you guys to go and listen and watch all the other episodes first, even if you've already watched them, just to refresh your memory fully. But with that being said, let's get into episode 7. 2 more updates to come. Here's the first. Okay, first update is titled as follows. Dan returned my camper, and ex-sister-in-law got a DUI, but I've also got a copycat that has made my family upset all over again. To start this off, I came back after all this time to find 500 messages in my inbox and 130 unanswered PMs. Please don't PM me anymore, there's just too many to answer. So if you PM me and I clicked ignore, I'm sorry. Just know that's why. It's not personal. I just felt too overwhelmed to reply to so many. But that is not what brought me back to Reddit. I decided to stay away at least for a year because my posts were not exactly boosting family morale. So I didn't log in for quite some time. It's worth mentioning as well that these posts went pretty viral. A lot of people interacted, clearly. I mean, OP has a lot of messages. And OP's family saw these as well. Anyway, let's get into it. Then, the other day, my brother Dan spotted a video with an unbelievably similar story to mine in far too many ways. Only it was about an OP with a twin sister instead of a sister-in-law. But it had so much of the same. Entitled, narcissistic parents, guy treated like trash all his life and then rendered homeless, golden child sibling, keeping the favoritism a closely guarded secret from family while the OP was growing up. Sister, still in her 20s, has 3 kids and was pregnant with a 4th. Sister's eldest son attacks OP, and above all them, trying to steal the OP's house by breaking in while he wasn't home. So many parts were nearly identical. Even 2 lines like "suck it up" and "my house is not up for grabs" were in the video. Now, my parents and brother are frankly annoyed, and I wasn't happy seeing the video either. We've all been trying hard to get past our previous family dynamic and what my ex-sister-in-law put us all through. You can imagine it took a lot for me to let go of my grudges. But in a year, my parents and Dan have improved more than I'd seen in my entire life before that. And I love my nibblings to pieces. So whoever wrote that copycat story, congrats. You just sent my entire family right back into needing therapy. And yes, my family is aware I'm making this post. Now, with that rant over, here's what I hope to be my final update. Now, for what was stated in the title, I had a few naysayers before, but Dan kept his word. My camper was returned to me a few months ago and in good condition. Dan took good care of it and thoroughly cleaned it before giving it back. He and our father also resealed the roof on it once while it was in their care. Inside, it's no worse for wear than it was when I was living in it, only I got it back smelling like a pine cleaner. There was some minor drama while Dan was living in my camper from a neighbour right behind them. Not quite sure she qualifies as a Karen, but she was close enough. She started yelling at them from over the fence about the camper and started threatening police. My brother and father went off on her and then explained that Dan was living in the camper so his son could have his bedroom. Well, the neighbour still wasn't happy, but stopped with the threats. My father talked to her husband later though, and he was mad at her. Then he apologised on her behalf and said that Dan was doing a good thing by giving up his room to his son. The neighbour husband also congratulated Dan on kicking out his ex and said he was always afraid to mention before, but she was just a horrid woman. We can all agree on that now. So yeah, the neighbours aren't a problem anymore. Dan and our father managed to get some money together on the side and bought a slightly bigger camper to set up in our parents' backyard. We needed my truck just to move it, but we got it in there. It's basically the best that Dan can do right now till the credit debts his ex piled up are paid off. And even then, he's got the future of his kids to plan for. He may be living in that camper for the next 10 years, but it's preferable to how it was when he was married. His ex-wife certainly can't and won't be contributing to college funds for the kids, except maybe for her affair baby. Dan's camper is admittedly better than mine, and it's newer, bigger, and has its own bathroom. Mine doesn't. Although Dan never really uses said bathroom, it's basically become a closet since the toilet and shower are so tiny. If he needs to take a leak or something, he just goes in the house. Dan and I had a joking laugh about me being jealous that he's got the better hobo house, and we bantered like sarcastic gentlemen about it. He's kitted out his camper with some better amenities, like a flat screen TV, complete with streaming, video games, and DVD. He said it feels like he really has his own place now, even though he's just in the backyard, and he's much happier now that he's divorced. Dan tells me one day he'll get a truck too, just so he can move the camper on his own someday. But for now, he's sticking with his minivan for the sake of his kids. So his camper is sitting pretty where it is, and mine is back in my backyard where it belongs. Though it's not gone unused. I temporarily rented it to a cousin who moved into the area for work, and they were only in the camper about a month before finding their own apartment. Other than that, it serves as a guest house when needed. Relatives come by to use it when in town so as to not need a motel. My nephews come over to stay in it a few times for fun as well. His sisters don't really have an interest. The camper is the closest he's ever been to camping. Same here sadly, because I didn't buy that camper to camp, but to live. As for my parents, they've gone to therapy. My mother got medicated for her mental problems and fully acknowledges her terrible past mistakes as a parent with all of the favoritism, as does my father. My father is still awkward around me, but he's been fairly active in his church. He's working hard to rebuild the family reputation as best as he can. And Dan has cut back on drinking a lot since he isn't so stressed out anymore. He's even taken up exercising. He's in pretty good shape now. And he told me his ex-wife saw the picture of him he posted online after shedding 20 pounds and called him to compliment. He didn't take the bait. As for the holidays, my parents, brother and nibblings all came to my Christmas Eve party last year, along with most of the other relatives who came the year prior. What a change that is, by the way, from just a couple of years ago. No problems at all, save for the fact that none of them could stay the night in my spare rooms anymore since I rented them out. Both of my tenants were away seeing their own families too. Things went swimmingly. Not only was my ex-sister-in-law not invited, she wouldn't have been able to crash the party anyway because of my restraining order against her. But she also barely made any attempt to spend time with her other kids either. She only bothered to see them twice a month at best. She didn't even send them any gifts for Christmas or birthdays since being outed as a cheater. And the kids were initially pretty upset about that, but now they just don't care. My ex-sister-in-law, I guess, decided she was going to try to live like she was single again, despite having a baby at home. And it didn't go well because life gave her one heck of a cheese slap. On New Year's, she went out late to party like it was 1999, and she got pulled over by a cop on her way home. She got arrested for DUI and her car was impounded. She called Dan while being arrested, begging him to come and get her to keep it from going to impound. He told her he wasn't helping her and she could deal with it herself. Dan has drank and drove, so it was kinda a little hypocritical, but this woman put him through so much, I don't blame him for rebuffing her. Some flying monkey of my ex-sister-in-laws called Dan to berate him about being a terrible person. Pretty sure this was the same woman who called me a while back. Dan had none of it and went off on her with a long tirade about his ex's cheating, what happened in the divorce, and that he has no sympathy for his ex since she left him with mounds of credit card debt and she does nothing for their kids anymore. The flying monkey didn't call back. We still don't know who she was, but Dan said she sounded like a religious nut. My ex-sister-in-law went to court and she pled guilty for the DUI. Dan found this out because she called him, claiming that because of the DUI, she wouldn't be seeing her other kids anytime soon. She told him she was sentenced to take a 6-month DUI class, in which time her license is suspended until completion, and she won't be allowed to drink at all, which is the part she was most upset about. I've heard of these classes before. They make you take regular and at times random urine tests, and when you finally get your license back, you have to have a camera and breathalyzer installed in your car for a year. Also, increased insurance rates for the DUI on record. Ex-sister-in-law has not been having a fun time, but I've got no pity for her. I don't drink and drive. Yeah, exactly. I think drink and driving should be one of the most punished things, even if, there's no sort of accident or emergency that happens as a result of it. Like, as soon as you step into a car and you are over the limit, arguably even if you had just a drop of alcohol, you know what you're doing. And you know that you could seriously cause death doing that. So I think you should be punished extremely severely. Sadly, that is all the info I have on my ex-sister-in-law, as she's kept minimal contact with Dan for some time now. And eventually, she'll probably stop contacting him altogether unless absolutely necessary. I don't know anything else about my sister-in-law's parents or her affair baby. Even Dan doesn't know. But I do still have a bit of info on someone else. Remember my ex-sister-in-law's affair partner, the bronze-tongued lout? Well, he made his social media public again, and he doesn't seem to acknowledge the existence of my ex-sister-in-law or his child at all. Dan tried to message him and promptly got an immediate block. So the guy's just being a butt and acting like his trash doesn't stink. Whatever. His knocking up of my ex-sister-in-law got her out of the family anyway, so in a way, we're all thankful to that affair partner idiot. Anyway, that is everything I have, and hopefully I won't need to come back again unless my truck gets egged again next Halloween. However, guys, I told you there was 2 updates to come. The first one there was about 10 months ago at the time of recording. This second one, just 2 months ago. But, we're getting some pretty recent, juicy stuff here. Pretty up to date with OP's life and Dan's and what's going on in their families. So, this is the final story, the final post that we have for now. But who knows, in the future, there may be more. Let's get into it. One of my best friends just broke up with their entitled girlfriend because I had an argument with her about a woman who stole a bag of cans out of my truck. Now, just a little bit of context here. OP posted on AmITheJerk a couple of days before that, and it wasn't really relevant to this story at all. It was something different, but they say the following. I may have started doxing myself by speaking of the bottle deposit in my state. I'm going to come out and say it since I probably shouldn't be posting it anymore anyway, but I'm not actually in the part of the US I was previously telling people I was in. I only said it was that part because I didn't want to risk people trying to figure out where I live and who I am. It's pretty much the only thing I fibbed about. But in retrospect, it's probably redundant now that I'm no longer posting about Dan or my ex-sister-in-law or my parents. Dan and my nibblings are doing great, by the way. And yes, Dan is still living in his own camper out of our parents' backyard since he gave his room to his son. He still wants to buy his own truck to go camping with it sometime. But supporting his family comes first before a fun vehicle. and he's still in financial recovery after what his ex-wife put him through, peeing away his savings and racking up debt. And on top of that, Dan has saving for his kids' future colleges to worry about. So a truck just isn't on the priority list. My parents are doing good. My mother is more emotionally stable around me now. She went through a bad phase of getting stressed at the drop of a feather and apologizing to everyone constantly. Even seeing any sort of story remotely similar to the ones I posted would send her back to therapy. But she's finally making great progress. My father isn't exactly cheerful around me. We're amicable with each other. Even drank together a few times. But we lost out on truly bonding as father and son due to the past favoritism of Dan. But he's been working his butt off to better himself, and I appreciate his hard work. My parents can't change the past, so they're just working hard to move forward. As for my ex-sister-in-law, she's basically stopped bothering to see her 3 kids she had with Dan at all, and has even been talking about completely giving up her parental rights to them over and over again, but never seems to go through with it, despite never being around. She got one heck of a cheese slap in life a year ago when she got that DUI and had to take classes and remain sober for 6 months, which drove her absolutely nuts. We all expected her to cave and start drinking again when she wasn't supposed to, but she held to it. I guess she was afraid of what would happen if she broke the court order. She got her license back, but she currently has to drive with a breathalyzer in her car. She can't have an ounce of alcohol in her, or the car won't drive. Wait, is that how that works? That's genius. I didn't even know that's how it works. That's brilliant. She was trying to flirt with Dan off and on for a while, but he never took the bait. So she moved on to dating someone else now, who I bet she's making do everything for her. I guess in a way that's good news for us, but I pity whatever guy she roped in. None of us put baby trapping past her. We're all glad she's out of our lives, but my nibblings still lost their mother because she's an entitled, shopaholic, narcissistic cheater who got karma cheese slapped. Saying she was cheese slapped, by the way, has become a running gag when talking about her since I first coined that line. I was about to say, I've never heard that before, but I quite like it. I would like to know what type of cheese it is though. My parents, Dan, and several of my friends keep saying, "Oh no, they got cheese slapped," as a joke when karma hits people they know or know of. Not sure if she knows about it or not, but we don't care. I'm pretty sure she was the one who egged my truck on Halloween a year and a half ago, but it's not happened since. Okay, now that kind of is the end of the Do It For Dan saga and the updates at this moment in recording. However, as you noticed by the title of this post, which was one of my best friends just broke up with their entitled girlfriend because I had an argument with her about a woman who stole a bag of cans out of my truck, there is another story here posted by the same user. So we're just going to read that anyway, and then I'll give my final thoughts at the end of this one. So the post continues. Anyway, last week, I had a huge bag full of cans I was going to cash in, and some woman stole them out of the back of my truck while I was having lunch. The bottle drop wasn't far, so I headed that way and caught her lugging my bag of cans. I pulled over and confronted her. She denied the theft until I threatened to call police and mentioned the place I ate lunch likely caught her on CCTV. She griped about money being tight, and I didn't care. She dropped the bag and cussed me out before I could call the cops. I told this story to some friends later, and only one person was upset with me, and it was the now ex-girlfriend of one of my best friends. I was really worried this incident ruined a relationship, but it turns out the breakup was a long time coming. When I argued with this woman, she yelled at me that the woman who stole the bag of cans out of the back of my truck was possibly homeless, and I went too far chasing her down and making her return the cans. She called me a jerk who can't give people a break because I was so wronged in the past. And then she sarcastically mocked me by putting on her boyfriend's baseball cap and acting like me in the worst parody way she could do. But nobody was laughing, especially not her now ex-boyfriend. He yanked the hat off her head and told her that went too far, and she yelled that me taking some cans back from a possibly broke or homeless woman was too far, and she stormed out of the bar. I ended up feeling conflicted after a few more drinks at home, and I didn't sleep well because the stress made my insomnia act up. So I posted on Reddit to ask if I was in the wrong, and I got a pretty much 90% not the jerk. I couldn't go into full detail in that subreddit because of character limit though. That was the post I was referring to earlier. Well, because my friends know about this Reddit account, it wasn't long at all before I was getting phone calls and text messages. So I logged out and I stopped answering comments. Trash was hitting the fan fast. My friend and his now ex-girlfriend had a massive argument over the phone during their lunch breaks, and they officially broke up that evening at his place. The ex-girlfriend also messaged me to call me a jerk one more time and told me I'd ruined everything. I didn't respond, I just blocked the number. I never gave her my number before either. The jury's still out on how she got it, but it wouldn't have been that hard. She could have copied it from my friend's phone or asked someone else who knows. Anyway, I was really upset and stressed that I was the cause of the breakup, but then my friend came over with some beer and told me that he'd only been dating that woman for 5 or 6 months, and she was constantly nagging him, trying to milk him for money to buy her things, always taking alcohol from his fridge to take back to her place without asking, wanted him to pay for every meal when they ate out since the first date, and was constantly on her phone to the point of it being extremely annoying. Even on date nights, she was always on her phone. That's pretty much how their Valentine's Day went. He knew then he wanted to end things soon because he felt like he was dating an entitled teenager. He also mentioned that she was being really rough with him as of late. He wouldn't elaborate on what he meant by rough, so I let it go. Either way, he used that situation to finally end the relationship. He said she screamed and cried, cussed him out, and gaslit by denying all the points he made about her. But he had none of it and told her they were through. She packed any stuff she had in his apartment and left. He said she also tried to take some stuff that wasn't hers too, like his MJ stash and the coffee maker. He loves coffee, and he has one of those coffee makers that dispenses the coffee from those little plastic cups. She apparently argued that he got her hooked on good coffee and he could just get another machine. That's when he started filming her and told her to get out before he involved police. He says he's not sure she wanted the coffee maker just for good coffee or if she just wanted the machine to spite him. Personally, I make my coffee with a plain Jane coffee pot because the other people living in my house share in the morning coffee too. Before that, I just drank instant. What do you guys drink? Let me know in the comments down below. Back to my place. I still have a couple of guys renting rooms from me to ease the cost of my mortgage, and you could say those guys are real bros. They came out to join us in drinking beer. The 4 of us got drunk playing Uno, and he who smelt it dealt it, and then I finally got some deep sleep, albeit on my couch after too much beer, and only for about 7 hours. My phone's alarm may as well have been nails on a chalkboard to my ears when it went off in the morning. My friend left my phone right near my head after I passed out. That wasn't the only thing he left. I woke up with a square of sandwich cheese on my face. God dang it, he cheese slapped me. That is amazing, an IRL cheese slap. I laughed and immediately felt the sting of my hangover. I was too drunk to feel it when he threw it on my face after I passed out. So he just left it there before he went to bed in my room for the night so he wouldn't need to go home. Either way, we both had a painful hangover laugh about it. The both of us had to call in and come to work late to ease our morning hangovers, and I was basically running on energy drinks all day. My friend's ex has not made any more attempts to contact me or him so far. She's blocked a whole bunch of people on her social media and is essentially out of the whole friend group now. It turns out a lot of people didn't like her anyway, so no one's really losing sleep over it. Now, I really shouldn't be posting here again, but just to clarify a couple of details. The bag I was using to haul the cans was a large transparent bag made to cover mattresses. You can use them as giant garbage bags once they've been taken off the mattress. And a friend of mine works warehousing and delivering mattresses, and he gives the used mattress bags out for free to friends and family. They can hold a lot and don't leak or tear as much as regular garbage bags if in good shape. I also only buy cans and plastic bottles for beverages because they're much lighter than glass when bagged up. Second thing I want to clarify. I did get my friend's permission to make this post since the situation heavily involved him. He's pretty chill about it, and jokingly said I could owe him a 6-pack of tools for the whole mess. Even though he said it as a joke, yesterday I left the 6-pack at his front door with a pink bow on it before ringing the doorbell and bolting. He thought that was pretty funny. Personally, I'm going to lay off the booze for a little while anyway. So yeah, I hope I don't get tempted to ever come back here to post anything again. Okay, and there we go. We went a little bit off track there at the end, but I enjoyed that story and that update as a whole. I'd actually forgotten myself how sort of wholesome the Do It For Dan situation was becoming, and how much, you know, OP's parents, Dan himself, had changed throughout all of this. It's pretty amazing to see. Once again, if you haven't seen any of the other episodes, they're all linked down below. They're all in the description, pinned comment as well, and I'll put a couple on the end screen just in case. You know what I'll do actually? I'll put the most recent one here. So that's like episode 6, and the first one up there, that's episode 1. So if you want to start from the beginning, go up there, click episode 1 when it appears, which will be right about now. There it is. And yeah, overall, great story. Really enjoyed it. Thank you, OP, for continuing to update us over the years now. It's pretty insane. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the update as well.